call the meeting to order. Would you please take the roll?
Reverend Childs?
Here.
Ms. Collins?
Here.
Ms. Wheeler is absent. Dr. Jacobowitz? Ms. Jordan?
Here.
Ms. Loud? Here. Mr. Michael?
Here.
Mr. Schwartz is absent. Ms. Shear?
Here. Stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session. Hang on. For the purpose of collective bargaining under the Taylor Law, aspect GTF, CSEA, and SBSP, matters leading to the employment of a particular individual or individuals, and employment history of a particular individual or individuals or corporations. Please do advise.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, and we will return to public session as close to 7 as possible. Please go red. Okay, I'm going to call the public session to order. We have no action coming out of executive session, and so we've reached the first opportunity for public participation. So, let me just run through the parameters. Please go green, sorry. Go green. The policy for public participation should be fixed at the podium, but you're limited to 2 minutes. Our board clerk will let you know when you're approaching the 2 minutes. You may discuss issues, not specific personnel or students. You'll be asked to stop. It's not been for that. So, is there anyone who would like to address the board at this point in time? Okay, so that brings us to the minutes of October 10th. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of October 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor of accepting the minutes of October 10th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, moving to the minutes of October 31st. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of October 31st, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm going to abstain.
I was going to say. Did you have a good time? All right, that brings us to the superintendent's report. I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Catalina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're going to start off the superintendent's report tonight with a Robert Graves faculty meeting. Way to turn out, Dr. Graves.
Thank you very much for having me tonight. Actually really excited to be here. Robert Graves, we are celebrating, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But tonight we're going to talk about what we've been up to at Robert Graves. So our SEP goals for this year were continued to be focused on reading, utilization of data to make data-driven decisions, and focus on social emotional development. Basically, everything we do is based on data, so it's been very successful and we'll prove some of that. Our GTSDE survey this year, this is from the students, and as you see, those points are all pretty high. We're really happy with that, including my principal leads our school well, which is at 97%. My teacher wants me to do my best, 98%. My teacher wants me to ask questions when I need help, 97%. My teacher helps me when I need it, 97%. Focus on social emotional growth. And I know this has been something that the district has focused on. This is something that we've been doing for quite a few years. Really, PBIS, peaceful school buses, and the lunch monitor meetings, these have helped hone in social emotional development, but they just made Robert Graves even better. And I think you'll see why in a bit. The Dan Levine program continues to focus on empathy and mindset. We're working with Drew from Energy to help some of our 3rd and 4th grade boys with a program that's going to be kind of kinesthetic program. So we have a lot of strong female personalities in our building, but we don't have a lot of strong men. So, we spoke to Drew, and we're looking at working with our 3rd and 4th grade boys for some groups during lunch and recess. Is it bullying? This is a sheet that we have developed. Actually, Mrs. Sickles from Crosby was using this, and I adopted it, so I thank her for that. But Is It Bullying is a sheet that we use with any conflict with students to define specifically what happened and how we're going to deal with it. So on the DTSDE survey, there was a part that said bullying is a concern of students. In our BLT meetings, our SEP plan, we've defined that students don't really know what bullying is. So this is how we're working with students, this is how we're teaching them about what happened, and then we're just using restorative practices and restorative meetings to help correct those issues. Attendance. This is one that I know the district is focusing on, and I have tasked my social worker to really focus on it, and Ms. Jacoby's doing an excellent job. This year, attendance is a main focus of students. Every year, we talk to parents, and I present to parents on the importance of attendance, but now the students are really understanding it, and we're celebrating every month with the class that gets the highest attendance. Reading. As part of our SEP goal, we've been focusing on this for the last 2 to 3 years because our math scores were considerably higher than our ELA scores. For the last probably 4 or 5 years, the focus has been on early intervention. In the last about year or so, we've started having early intervention with targeted intervention. Many of our students that moved into Robert Graves were finding they were starting to not do as well as the students that had been at Robert Graves since the beginning. So we have targeted intervention at multiple levels for K through 3. Just some of the different reading programs we have is tutorial reading program, which includes retired teachers. They come in every Friday and they read to some of our Tier 2 students. We do have Fort Gillingham groups that are started and functioning this year. And I use my TA at large specifically to focus on Tier 2 students. So besides servicing just Tier 3 students, we're also servicing Tier 2 students. And our summer reading challenge, which is what has gotten me on the roof at one point, taking the wall another point, and balloon story. The data that defines our population, we have 395 students. We did when I wrote this, but this week we got 4 new students, so almost 400. 42% of our students get free and reduced lunch, and 20% of our students have either an IEP or a 504. So we are not a country club. We do have 42% students who have free and reduced lunch. All right, the New York State Math and ELA. STAR, NSGRA, all of those assessments are what support us through the year and help us understand where our students stand. But the New York State ELA and Math, this is the big dance for us. This is what we really consider to be what we're striving for student success, and it's how our school is measured by the state. So this is what we've been looking at. And as I had started saying, we've been focusing on ELA because it wasn't up to par with our math. Last year, our math scores were off the charts. They were incredible. Our ELA scores were average to a little bit low. But that has been our goal for the last 2 or 3 years is to get those equal. All right, this kind of looks like a mess, but I'm going to break it down. So I'm going to see if I can use the laser here. All right. So the purple is Robert Graves for 2018. What this is 3rd and 4th grade combined ELA scores. Here's our overall for 3 and 4. Here's our percentage at level 4. And here's our percentage at level 3. So you can see the level 4s went up double from last year. And we are higher than these other schools in the district. And I want to break that down more. So this is a comparison of Robert Graves in the district. Here's our level 3 compared to the district. Here's our level 4 compared to the district. And here's them together. Here's a comparison of Robert Graves with Ulster County. Our level 3s significantly higher, our level 4s, and they combined higher than the county. Here's Robert Graves compared to New York State averages. Level 3s, considerably higher. Level 4, a little lower. And our combined, it's higher. So overall, our ELA results from last year, we were the highest performing elementary school in the district. Our averages were higher than Ulster County, and our overall averages were competitive or higher than the state. So we have reached and exceeded our ELA score for last year, and that's something we're very proud of, because it took a lot of hard work. So I kept on going. Here's our math scores. So as I said, last year we blew math away. This year, we're a little lower, but not much. Here's our level 4 and our level 3. Once again, I compared us to the district. Overall, our level 4s are higher in the district, our level 3s are higher than the district. In the county, level 4s are higher, level 3s are higher, that's Robert Graves. In the state, here we go. Level 4s, level 3s are overall. So, for math and ELA, Robert Graves performed higher than the averages for the county, the state, and the district in ELA and math. There was one school that got a higher level 3 in the district, and that's Meyer by 2%. That's at the 3 level, not the 4. We got the highest scores for level 4 of all schools in the district. Now you can clap. Science I didn't dig in too much, but we did score very well. And there's the level 3s and 4s compared to the district and the state. That's what I just said. But level 4s, we were the absolute highest. We're very proud of this. That's why my entire staff is here. We are celebrating these scores. We have been working on this for a long time. This is not something that's a fluke. This has been in the making for years. I'm incredibly proud of my staff. Okay, the reasons I said some already. Focus on early intervention. Everyone is involved with working with our students. Determination, creativity, tenacity of my team to meet the varied needs of our students. The bottom line, and this is truly a fact, everybody at Robert Graves is focused on the needs of the students. They care about the students, and they put in a ton of work to make sure they're successful. When I was preparing for this, I thought of specific staff members and the time they put in and some of the specific extra things that they do, and I can't even begin to tell you. I could tell you stories about every staff member, about the time they put in, about the after-school activities they had that were social, emotional, about the counseling they did with students, about coming to me and helping with certain specific situations that are social, emotional, or academic, and it would take an hour, and you'd be impressed, because that is what defines Robert Graves, that is why we are successful, and the hard work and the determination of these people at Robert Graves is why I'm here to celebrate tonight. Thank you, Robert Graves. One last thing, we will be celebrating this at Robert Graves, and I have the 4th grade last year donated some funds to me, and we're going to be having a nice catered lunch for the entire staff. Right down to the lunch monitors, the custodians, to the teachers. We're all going to celebrate with an incredible lunch, and thank you very much.
Any questions for Dr. Bruce?
Well, I just want to thank you for coming and thank you for being so involved with your staff, because I think that the fact that everybody is here tonight shows that they're really a team, and that's why you're so successful. And I just think that it comes down to, no matter what the data says, the research shows that it's who's in front of that classroom and the dedication of that individual and the way they relate to students. So I'd like to congratulate all of you. And I really love that you're serving Tier 2 and Tier 3, because I think that that shows in your data that there's a difference. We can't forget about the kids on the track, because otherwise they're lost. So I really congratulate you for using your staff that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I would just echo that. This is see my people here. So, thank you. I mean, it sounds, I know there's so much more substance to what you said, and test scores and test score, and we could talk about that forever. But there's a lot of substance behind that, and I wouldn't discount, I don't think you discounted the after-school stuff, but those kinds of things are also important, and those are the things that help students know how much teachers and staff and everybody care about them, which is really the root of where you want to be with your academics.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I was talking to Mrs. Layer this morning, and we were talking about this, and she said to me, the reason our students are successful is because they feel valued, they feel comfortable in this setting, and they're here to learn. And our teachers model that every day. They enjoy what they're doing, they're excited about what they're doing, and the students are the same.
Just, you made me just think of this, that we were joking on the way out, the school spirit is contagious, and your unity is contagious, and it's obvious that that trickles down to the students, and that's, really apparent that that's why you do what you do, and I'm sure the kids feel that, and that's a huge contributing factor to your success, so thank you all.
Thank you.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Dr. Bruce, for your presentation, and thank you for your faculty and staff who are all here, making this room hotter than it was before.
I work here.
But what I really appreciate is many presentations, but one of the things Dr. Bruce did was he really illustrated really the district, how we work as a district, setting goals and the language that we speak. And you all hear us talk about DTSD and SEP plans and how we're setting our goals. And I think Dr. Priest did a very good job of really illustrating for the board, this is how each of our buildings does it. This is what we look at. We look at our survey, we look at our test results, we use our DTSD rubric to make improvements and find those areas, the reading area where you want to find that improvement, and then adjust our instruction to meet that challenge. So thank you.
And I wanted to say, I have always enjoyed working with you, and I think your staff is very fortunate to have you there at the helm, and you are very fortunate to have them behind you.
Absolutely.
Yes, you
Very
are.
much.
They brought a banner too. Thank you very much.
Can I get an amen?
Okay, next on the supervisor's report, we have our friends from CSR and BBL to talk to us about our Mahar elementary progress. Thank you. Carly.
I'll be back.
I was leaving. We will pause a minute while Barbara brings
To teach tomorrow. Bye. Thank you. Thank you. You should all want like It's been a long day.
This is a crowd size I'm more comfortable with. Good evening, everybody. Everything at Mahar is going very well so far. A lot more exciting stuff going on between last month and now. Just to give you guys a few updates, all of the abatement in the building is now complete, including all the additional abatement, which I will go through in a minute. The old boilers were removed, which was a massive task, and the new ones have now been installed. 3 smaller units, which are going to be much more energy efficient, and they will be up and running at the end of the month. They will be starting them up next week, and they will be heating the building. For the additional abatement, there was a floor upstairs in the 1917 wing that was in horrible condition, so it needed to be replaced. And underneath was an asbestos mastic, so that had to be properly cleaned. And in addition to that, the windows in the 1917 portion, underneath the windowsill was a fabric that was unseen. So that was properly taken care of, and that was completed this past Monday. It was only in the 1917 portion. In the back side of the building, which is now going to be the new entrance, all the excavation is complete for the elevator pit and the new entryway. The concrete footings were placed last week, and today the foundation walls and the slab for the elevator were poured. Inside the building, metal wall framing continues, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing roughing is going on, progressing very smoothly, no issues to date. And they are working as a team together to make sure all of their work coordinates with each other, and no issues so far. We are still doing a little bit of demolition inside, taking down some block walls for new doorways and new security windows. And then in the office, contractors are still continuing to provide for submittals and get all their materials on site so they can get their work done in a timely fashion. It's going well so far. I'm going to turn it over to Doug to talk about the changes at the boardroom.
Okay. As you may expect, as we tear into the old buildings, we do uncover some things and run into a few quirks. Is this the laser? All right. Originally, this little corner here, we had called to come out. There was a sheetrock wall. When the sheetrock was taken down, there was the block, gypsum block walls behind it from the original 1917. We were just going to take those down as well, but as we discovered up above, some of the framing was a little suspect, and we didn't want to take that out. So we've been kicking around the best ways to deal with this without costing a whole lot of money. And we didn't really want to just leave a jog in the boardroom, so we looked at leaving it and extending the wall across, which would create this small closet, which could provide some storage for the district. And Caitlin in our office did the layouts, and we're only losing, I think that says 85, well, counting this, probably about 100 square feet. But the room still will work as originally anticipated. And I think, do I advance it? There we go. Again, these are the 3D illustrations. And of course, and we have three locations for the whiteboards. And this is set up for the board, but as originally intended, the room will be multifunctional and be able to perform many tasks throughout the year. So I don't know if anybody has any questions regarding the slight revision. Yes.
Let us share with the board how deep that closet is, how
Well,
many feet deep it is.
It's approximately 4 feet, a little less than 4 feet, so it's not huge, it's not taking a lot of space, but it will provide some additional space. I know there's some IT equipment and whatnot that may want to go back there, other items.
So we'll be losing about 4 feet in the length of the room.
Right.
So how does that compare with the current?
I don't know what this room actually is, but I think it's
About 900 square feet.
this room. Yeah. So I think we're still a little more than that. It's not as wide. It's not as wide, but it's longer. It's longer.
The only concern I have is that the configuration looks exactly like the configuration here, and sometimes it's really difficult to hear. I'm just hoping that maybe when we have the new setup, it will be.
I think the furniture choices will be up to us of how we want to, that, I think this is just kind of standard in their computer program, but I mean, if we want to have a curved table that maybe gives us more of a view, that's a FF&A commercial conversation we'll have later on in the.
But the sound will be better?
Sorry?
The sound will be better. The sound in that room will be better than it is in this room. Yes?
Should be.
Question, so the live streaming, where will that, you're saying it's 3, it will be showing 3? Because the people back there can't see half the time.
There's
Or like a screen like this.
It's going to be a combination. The system will be set up where the image can be seen on all 3
Okay.
locations. There'll be, there were some discussions early on, there'll be one live or active, and then the 3 viewing locations.
Those details,
Later on.
Doug and Carly and Gary from the district, they'll fine tune as we get toward the end, so they get filled out.
Right.
And the hardest person, I'm sorry, the hardest person to satisfy in all this is Gary, and I met with Gary this afternoon. He feels pretty confident in the conversation that they had this afternoon, they'll be able to facilitate exactly what we want to do.
And so, I mean, the presentations will show up, screen behind the board, and they'll be.
All 3 screens are synchronized, so whatever's on one is on the other. And then as it's a learning space, the one interactive board, which is currently going to be here, which will be at normal height, the other 2 will be higher so you can see them. Whatever's written on here, like if I touch it, I don't know if this is set up for that right now. But when you right, it'll show up on the other 2 screens. So they're all synchronized for whatever they're going to be used for.
I just meant, because currently, the people viewing from home, when it's being live streamed, can't see the presentations,
But now they will.
but they'll be able to see
The
it.
presentation will be behind us
Yes,
as well as.
that's what I'm getting.
We didn't come up with an exact location, but we did talk about the camera location today. And the idea was, is that we would not have the audience in, but we'd have this area, and the camera's gonna go right in this neighborhood someplace and looking right at that screen. So they'll be able to see that screen.
And the sound will definitely be better. One of the reasons the sound isn't so good here is we kind of reinvented this room with the sound system. We're building a new room. The sound system's incorporated in the plan, so we definitely will have much better acoustics and sound for our people at home.
Question?
Moving forward.
Thank you.
As I said a few minutes ago, all of the excavation in the back of the building is complete. The old entrance was right here, it's not there anymore. And all of the concrete for the new footings are in place, and today they poured these walls and the slab that is right here for the new elevator. These are the new boilers. They're very small, as I said, but again, they're much more efficient than the dinosaur that was in the basement for 70 years. Electrical rough-in is proceeding well. This is in the 1874 portion. They're working their way south through the building on the second floor and then moving down to the first floor. As well as mechanical rough-in, this is in the 1874 portion as well, following along the electrical and as the metal framing goes up. As I said, they're cutting new doorways in the IT office, putting steel in place so these doors are structurally sound and nothing on top will be impacted, as well as the new windows for the security office as you walk in the district office end of the building, and then the new doorways that you'll see when you go into the pre-K area. Does anybody have any questions about anything tonight? Okay, thank you.
Just to say, I was there last Wednesday. I was there last Wednesday, took a walk through, and it's a lot of interesting things you're running into with that old building. And I think that shaft where the boardroom was very interesting, that they bricked in all of the ventilation at that time. You know, now we put it up under drop-ins when it was all bricked in. Really interesting, a lot of work.
So I have a question. You said the security office. Are we having a security office or just windows?
When you walk in, there will be, it's a full office, and it'll have the sliding windows, like you see out here in the tax office,
Yeah, agreed.
that you'll be able to sign into or direct you to where you need to go.
Like Sandy?
Sandy Nelson.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sandy will be there'll be a double set of doors to keep people there and then they'll be buzzed in from there. And
Yes.
Sandy's also protected. She's
Good,
behind them.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Travis.
Next up, we have Dr. Henry.
Next on the superintendent's report is the superintendent. Thanks, Frank. One of the requests from the board that we talked about over the summer was a little bit of information about some of the things we learned in our DTSDE survey. It was really great to see Dr. Parise bring this up and just show you that we are all speaking the same language and a lot of the consistencies of what they're doing in grades and what we're doing in many of our school buildings are things that we're really focused on when addressing. I don't really like to say bullying because we're trying to look at it in a broader sense, but I'll cover that as I go along. As you know, our mission statement, we inspire, we educate, we graduate all students all the time. One of the things the DTSD survey has told us in every single building, from parents, from students, was they indicated there was a major concern in bullying in buildings. So this is something that the DTSD survey, while you can look at it in many different ways, this jumped off the page, and you all saw the presentation in the spring. So this is something we thought we better get a look at, see what we're doing, and how we can continue to do the things that we're doing, or improve the things we're doing. One of the important things that also Dr. Parise brought up is really defining bullying, and that's in quotes, because many people have different definitions of what bullying is. And so there's a kind of a misunderstanding of what bullying is, but for a working definition, we say it's a repeated, unwanted, aggressive behavior that involves a real or perceived imbalance of power. So this is kind of how we work with bullying when we look at it. And you saw many of our elementary schools are looking at that, what is bullying, what's rude, what's mean, what's bullying. So those are different things. So we're looking at our approach. One of the things we know, traditional approaches toward bullying are not effective. And they're not effective because punishing the bully actually creates more bullying. It's really not, it's not something that works. What has been shown to work is positive, caring school climate with the parent and community support. That's key. We need the parent and community support as we continue to build our climates and the communities in our school. Holistic, multifaceted approach is necessary. One solution that might work in one building might not work in another. We need to take a look at this in many different ways and deal with it in many different ways. There is no matter who you ask, you can bring every school administrator in the state of New York up to this podium and ask them what's the best way to deal with bullying, and not one of them would give you the same answer, I'd say. And not one of them would give you a definite, absolute answer either. This is a problem that really fights against solution, because it's a difficult problem to solve. But social emotional learning, another piece of our approach. And again, one-shot presentations are not enough. It's great. They're good for kickoff. They're good to create awareness. They're good to kind of just bring it to the forefront and let people know that we're talking about this, and that every student hears a certain message. But one bullying presentation, one bullying assembly a quarter or a month or any of those things is not the answer. The answer is consistent follow through, building a community, and really having a climate and culture where Dr. Parise said this as well, looking at knowing that people care about them. And we often credit Reverend Childs for saying no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Actually, Teddy Roosevelt said that first, but we'll but that really, I think Dr. Parise really said that. He said it without quoting, but that's really what he said, and that's the kind of things we're trying to do. 10 at 5. It's on our wall. Dr. Parise talked about working with DTSDE. This is where our area of focus is. This 10 at 5. It's the social emotional development of helping create a community of belonging and respect within our schools and our school district. Right? Things we're doing, just a couple of things. Culturally sensitive education. Our NYU partnership, some people call it TACD, we now call it Guardians of Equity. This is a group that's coming and helping us with our culturally sensitive education. Schools of Belonging, with our Teaching at the Institute partnership. Again, Dr. Parise did mention that as well. Restorative practice and community conferencing in each of our buildings. PBIS, and our focus on mental health and wellness of our students. Just kind of a summary of the things. I like to say all these things that we're doing. We talk about each one of these things that we're doing, and I always say they all funnel into the same training, and they do, and they all work together. Social emotional learning is about giving our staff and students assets to manage challenging experiences. It's how we give them ways to cope with certain situations, to give them skills and assets. PBIS is about creating the intentional conditions for our staff, students, and community. I mean, really that's where we set our expectations. Cultural responsibility is really just, it's about relevance. Right? It's how we make learning and being in school relevant to each and every one of our students. And restorative practices We talk a lot about restorative justice, but what we really want to focus on, and I think we learned this when we did our training with the trainers a couple weeks ago on restorative justice, is we really want restorative practices. It's not really about restorative justice. That's the end game. That's when you go there. But restorative practices is what we're working on here. Are about building, maintaining, sustaining this community that we say we need. So this kind of graphic just gives you all these things that we're putting together. This comes from the Empathy Institute. Just some of the things that are going on, and I won't list them all, but when I reach out to Dr. Felicello and Ms. Bondo and said, wait, what's going on in these buildings? They were able to very quickly come up with dozens of things that are going on in the buildings. So that elementary level, again, I won't read every one of them, and these are all in your packet. Schools are all looking at different ways to approach bullying, but they're all focused. They all know this is important to the district. Secondary, a little harder at the secondary, right? We can do a lot of things at the elementary, but a little harder at this when you get to the secondary. You've got to dig a little deeper. Important, very important. We talk about, we do all these things, and I come out here and I tell you all these great things we're doing, but how are we going to come back in June and tell you how we measure this? What are we looking at? Obviously, DTSE survey is great tool. We've been using it for many different things, creating our steps, creating our DSIP. Reviewing our DASA reports, quarter disciplinary referral analysis is the thing that one of the board goals was to receive quarterly disciplinary referral analysis broken down by our demographics, so we're doing that. Monitoring our SEP and DSIP plans, which Dr. Priest did a great job of setting me up for this whole thing, because you should have to have their monitor their plans, not only academically, but looking at the social and emotional wellness of our students. And this is a big one that we're looking at right now. Right now, our student management system, we can put in there how many kids we suspended. We can put in there how many kids had in-school, out-of-school suspension, detention, even if it's just a conference or a call to a parent. But we have nowhere in there to say community conference, mediation, any of the things that we're doing for restorative justice, so we can come back and report to you, these are the things we're doing. So we are working with our tech people, and we're going to have this these drop-downs into our student management system. So now, it's not just part of our code of conduct, it's not just part of our conversation, but it's an opportunity for us to collect data on whether we're doing this and how effective we are. Questions?
I think it's really helpful to redefine what the bullying is, because I think that there's been a kind of a combination of rudeness, lewdness, just poor choices that everybody refers to as bullying. And I think it would be important to break that down in any survey so that people have an option other than bullying. Because I think if that's the only way they can communicate that their kid is unhappy because of a social interaction, then we're always going to have that inflated. And the power play is very important.
Yeah, bullying is the catch-all word right now.
Right.
If someone is mean to you or someone is rude to you, student to student, the student goes home, tells mom or dad, so-and-so did this, it's bullying.
Right.
But that's why we want to make sure the definition out there. This is a repeated behavior, this is an imbalance of power. I think, the little boy pulls a little girl's hair in line, that's not bullying. That's
Right.
mean or that's rude, but it's not bullying
Right.
necessarily. So these are the things we're getting out there as far as, and I know all of our elementary schools have jumped onto this. I know, over at Chambers, they're doing it at Graves, Dr. Bruce just talked about it. Ms. Sickles out of Chambers, we're all talking with parents and with their students about this, what is bullying? So when we're reporting bullying, make sure that we're spending our time working on bullying, not necessarily on this one-time behavior that is mean or rude, for sure.
So I'm glad to see that we're collecting data about the conferencing. I mean, although I feel two ways about data, because it's very easy to just check a box, and there can be no meaning behind the data. But I also, on the other hand, feel that once we start kind of naming these things in institutional places, like here's the expectation and an option in your disciplinary toolbox or whatever, and it's on the computer, then I think that we start to that's a step towards institutionalization. So I'm glad to see that, and I am hopeful about the efforts on the substantive efforts that back it up, that we will really be working with our teachers and our kids to understand what restorative practices are. and that has meaning to it behind.
But I think some of the evolution of this learning process around restorative practices is the whole change, you change in language from restorative practice to restorative practices. I think that's a good change, because again, restorative justice is like, that's the end game, that's the end. It's like what happens at the end, and even the word restorative justice, sounds almost, even that sounds almost punitive. So the restorative practice is how we develop this community within our schools, in our district, that make kids feel safe, that help us help us to eliminate bullying in our schools. But the drop downs, I'll tell you, our administrators are excited to have these drop downs because they want to be able to show me, the assistant superintendents and deputy superintendents, that they're doing this, the things that they're trying, the things that are working, so they're excited about it. So they're the ones really pushing for these drop downs. And you're right, once you can click on that box and you can say, well, there's nothing here for what I just did, it doesn't really encourage you to do it, or if you do those other things. So this is an important piece to the program, and we're learning. I mean, we're learning.
Sure, and the other thing, so at the administrative level, that's important, but one thing that we're seeing in research really is that a lot of the disproportionality that we see in suspensions for kids of color is that it's really originating in the classroom and working, and so the work with teachers is so important. So having this at the administrative level is important, and it needs to filter throughout the whole school for teachers and students.
After Dr. Bruce's presentation, Ms. George said it, and this really is true. The most important person in a student's life is the person standing in front of them every day, is the teacher. So the teacher, modeling these behaviors, and the teachers, taking part in restorative practices is the most important thing that we have to do. And again, I think you started Dr. Priest, and we've seen it in the buildings. They're doing it. I mean, our teachers, especially, our elementary teachers especially, are really, into this, and they're performing the community service, the community conferences, and really creating that school of belonging that Mr. Lobianco talked to us about a couple of weeks ago.
I appreciate you doing this, and I think that, and you mentioned it, and Mrs. Jordan alluded to it as well, the term bullying is a loaded term, and it's really become that fallback. I just think that, and we'll talk about this later, I'm sure we'll be reporting out Coffees and Conversations, the last one that we were at. It seems like the majority of parents are concerned about bullying, or my child has been bullied, and it has become that catch-all phrase. So I think part of this too is also educating parents and students as far as what the behaviors look like or what they don't look like. And as we drill down and we can ferret that out, I think that's really important. So this is an important first step.
Like I said, it's one of those, it eludes, bullying, it eludes solutions, and these things don't help.
No, when you mention high school being a little more difficult than middle school, that's it.
And that is that is the bullying. That is a lot of the bullying. It's trying to get through the other pieces to get to the true bullying that's going on, so we can deal with that effectively. That's the importance of the definition, I think.
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question. There are going to be parent workshops, correct?
We actually already had one parent workshop at the middle level for.
They'll be continuing parent.
Yeah, we need to
workshops?
continue parental education around all of this.
Because I think it's very important that the parents understand, I'm concurring with my colleagues, what constitutes bullying. Because very often they want a DACA investigation immediately when someone has said something rude or mean once, and they have to understand that doesn't constitute bullying. But you're right about the electronic devices. That's something that we need to address as well.
We don't want to diminish the experience that a student might have that is unpleasant, whether it's, if it's someone who's being mean or someone who's, associated that's not good. We don't want to diminish that experience because it's there and that needs to be dealt with as well. And that's about creating that community of how we speak to each other and how we respect each other. But bullying is a loaded word, and people know when I drop that bomb, people jump, it's bullying, because we know, we're measured by this. We know this DASA report's work we have to do. We know it's going to the state. We know the state, when they call the state jumps as well. Bullying is a loaded word. It's become the catch-all. Hopefully we can get an understanding from our parents and our community. Just because we're not defining what happened to their student as bullying doesn't mean we're diminishing the experience that they had if it was unpleasant to them or made them feel a certain way. That is very important. So we're not saying, oh, it's not bullying, so I'm not dealing with it. It's not bullying, so I'm not dealing with it that way. But we're going to deal with it in another way. And I think that's important that parents feel that they'll still get, there'll still be a response to an unpleasant experience that if their parent or their student has in their district. It's just not necessarily a bullying event.
There's just one thing that keeps coming to my mind, and it's in reading the book on race that we have been given. There was one part where the author referred to the fact that a lot of people don't think they've said something racist or mean or something because they didn't intend it that way, but it's the way it's perceived. And so that's why I think it is so important that we continue these social-emotional efforts, because on both sides, we need to understand that we have to, we can't just talk about bullying. We have to hopefully talk more about kindness and respect, and the fact that the goal is that we learn how to interact in a positive way with one another.
Yes, give our students those assets, those skills, like I said, those assets and skills, and how to manage and how to work in a community and respect each other.
Because that's where I hope that, the 95% of action and interaction is, and just the small percentage of kids who are not yet able to use those skills. But I appreciate everybody's efforts around that.
Thank you, headed in the right direction.
Thank you. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Which brings us to the consent agenda. So, are there any resolutions that any trustee would like pulled from the consent agenda?
Question on one here, Poet.
Mrs. Collins?
I just have a question on CS 13.
Joanne Thomas, CS 13.
Yes.
CS 13.
I'm just curious about.
Well, do we want to discuss that, or you want to pull it, or do we?
Whatever you want.
We can move it.
Yeah.
We can
Well,
move it.
I'll entertain a motion
So
to
moved.
accept the consent agenda. Okay. All right, discussion.
I was just curious, maybe Dr. Pavlov can explain what the situation is and how that was decided on.
Yeah, Joanne Connolly was appointed the senior account clerk, she's filling the retirement for Elaine Wolf, who's leaving next Wednesday, I think. And there's traditionally been a stipend there's always been a stipend for the senior account clerk in that office, and it's that $3,000 number. So she'll just be taking that position and the stipend that Elaine Wolf has received since she's taken that position.
So it's a yearly stipend and you have there that's prorated for just the
Correct.
time. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
from November 22nd till.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I have a volunteer to read the donations in the absence of Ms. Guido. Do you have a couple of them?
There is a generous donation from the E.C. Meyer PTA in the amount of $525. Thank you very much. And also, let's see, a generous grant award from an employee of the United Health Group through the Nativity Community Impact Fund in the amount of $500. Thank you very much. And that's it. I appreciate all the donations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jordan, for volunteering. That brings us to committee reports. First up is the Facilities Committee report. The Facilities Committee met last Wednesday, November 7th. They discussed the startup of the KHS capital project again. The steering committee should be starting it again in January, and they are readying their bids for next summer. So that was that particular, and when we do return, we'll be meeting once a month as a steering committee, just prior to the facilities committee. The facilities committee will be concentrating on the CS Arch project at Mahar School. The CS Arch update was what you saw tonight, so I'm not going to repeat the whole thing. You have the sketches of the boardroom. There has been a slight change in the square footage because of the conditions that they revealed behind the wall. So they decided to leave it as is and not disturb it. And tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, we officially have the closing on the Sione building. So I'll be able to report back to the board at our next meeting on the 28th. And our next meeting of the Facilities Committee is December 5th. Right now, we're involved in building inspections. And we are, we've completed 3, there's 7 to go. And the committee was very generous in signing up to actually accompany on a tour. Also, Ms. Yavaniski from BBL is along on the tours, and the architects are kind of switching up. We have 2 companies now working with us, and KSQ is accompanying us on most of the tours. When we get to Mahar, I imagine you'll let us do a tour of Mahar towards the end. Of course, there'll be CSR. So that's it, and December 5th is the next meeting.
I have a couple of
Sure.
questions. I looked at the PowerPoint of the Mahar. There was a completion calendar or something like that. And it seemed that the pre-K is going to be finished by the end of December? Is that right?
Well, that's mostly refurbishment of paint and furniture.
Goes significantly along.
In those rooms, yeah, it's not as much work.
The entrance is pretty much ready, so the pre-K section will be done well before the administrative offices.
And when will the administrative offices, what is the schedule now for that?
Yeah, I think the believe they'll hand that over to us in July.
For opening in September.
Yes.
It's moving along very well. Yes.
I have a couple of
Save your boxes.
questions. I think they come under facilities, not related specifically to your report, but this might be the time. I was curious about signage for the entrances, the new KHS entrances. I know one of the things came up, once again, off of the conversation, there was a KHS yesterday. On Peter Street, nor, what is it, Mary's Avenue, there's only the sign for the SUNY Ulster. Are there going to be entrance signs to KHS? Because some of the parents were saying they didn't even realize that there was that new back entrance. So I'm looking at you, but I'm just saying.
I'm not sure how they missed that, but,
For
yeah.
me, I'm driving and I don't even know.
I think you're right. I think one of the things as we go through, the new property, we're learning a lot of different things. One being maybe we need some signage on the streets for people, as well as
That's one
work
way.
on there's one way, work on the traffic flow. And, Mr. Reinhardt went out and bought a couple of these signs that he puts out front now, so because we have a lot of things that go on at the high school that go different places, so that you walk out and you get there in front of
I was there today.
and there's a sign that says SATs enter through here, so those are good ideas, things that we're
You have some
learning as
lighted
new things.
sign.
Yeah, with signs at Kingston High School, absolutely.
Thank you. And then secondly, and this, once again, this was just brought up to me in an email from a parent, something to think about. I know winter is coming, but asking about a flag on the softball field at Miller, that when the girls play, they're directed the national anthem, that they have to look across, at Patburg Field, because they have to look across to Miller, and it's distracting. There's cars, there's people, and they were saying that there are people, even people who would volunteer to put the flag in place. So if that's something that we could look into, I think that would be important.
Yeah, I think 2 things. Winter is here,
Yeah,
on
it
the
is.
way,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's. I'm surprised the former principal of Crosby didn't take care of that before.
Just something to bring up, because I did get that. Thank you.
No, that's a good idea. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Burgess, just teasing you.
Stand there with a flag.
The students in the Street by Park.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you still using the front entrance, the old front entrance for drop-offs?
Yeah, students who, walkers really, that's a walker, the walker area, and we do have a place for parents to pull over on the Kingston High School side of the drive, so if you're going toward, if Kingston High School's on your right, we have, that whole row there is empty, and there's no parking there except for dropping off of students. But if a parent decides they're going the other way and they don't want to make that turn, they open the door, student walks out, these are the kind of things that happen. It's a busy area, and we really can't control how people drop students off. Even when the students are going around the back, some parents still drop them in front because they're going up or down Broadway, and going around the back wouldn't work for them anyway. So it's I think that's a challenge of our location. I don't think it's something we're ever going to necessarily completely overcome. We've talked about crosswalks and things of that nature, but it's not, there's not a natural place for a crosswalk where most of the problems happen in front of Kingston High School.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the front entrance is still in use by walkers, because I've never liked the idea of the walkers having to use the back entrance, because that's at least a quarter of a mile or 3/8 of a mile walk for most of them, because they're coming from from the north side of Broadway.
And along with what I was saying to Ms. Collins about us learning as we go through, when our first goal was we would never open that front door again. It would be a ceremonial entry, and so the entrance was a really opportunity, our language that we used around it. But when Mr. Parker and the high school, Mr. Reinhardt and the other high school administrators looked at it, but bringing 2,000 students around the back of that building into those doors was not necessarily the most efficient way to do it. We've always had more than one entrance in the morning. We can continue to man, two of it, as far as security is concerned, 2 entrances at the high school. I think that the back entrance and the front entrance for walkers and parents who drop off in the front was the most appropriate and most manageable for them.
Until 7:50.
Right, then
Then
everything goes to,
except for the security.
if you come after arrival, you have to go in the back and go through the security door.
Any other questions? Okay, we had a coffee and conversation Monday evening at the Immigrant Defense Network. There were 4 trustees and a superintendent there, and if anybody would jump in, Mrs. Collins was there, Mrs. Lau was there, I was there, Dr. Chkowitz and Dr. Paolino were all there. And we had pretty robust attendance. There were probably, over the course of the evening, 18 to 20 parents. And they had provided daycare, so babysitting, so there were children there as well, but most of the time they were occupied playing. And as Mrs. Collins alluded, one of their big issues was bullying. So does anybody else want to report out?
Dr. Paolino did I thought, a great job
Yeah.
of very compassionately addressing a lot of their concerns. It was great that we had a translator. And we had a bilingual worker there, one of
Yes,
our
we're valuing family workers.
which was also valuable. But I think we made inroads. I hope that we made inroads. And Dr. Paolino, as I said, you really did a great job of doing this, of putting a face on the district. I felt that in a very sad way, that a lot of these parents almost felt excluded just by the fact that they're not native speakers, that maybe they hadn't had a good school experience that was spoken about in the past. So to put a face, and he was very good about saying, go through the chain of command. If you have an issue, you go up and you can come to see me. Some of the issues are revolved around not having translators in meetings, which I know is a challenge with the growing population that we have of non-English speaking students and parents. But it was almost emotional. I think it was a great thing that we did, and I think I really felt that we made a connection, and I hope that we continue to hone that.
Actually, they wanted us to come back in February, but we're already booked for February. So I told them we did have 2 slots available later on in the year, or next year when the request goes out to community organizations who would like to have us to actually request to, space the way that they want the space. So, anything to add to that?
No, I agree with Mrs. Collins. I thought it was pretty emotional too, and I think that a lot of what they were seeking was face to the school district. And I think that, and we heard from this community what we hear from many communities, you know, which isn't surprising actually. But I think that they were really looking to see people behind the schools, and I feel like we bridged that, and I hope that they will, that we will continue to meet, and I hope that they'll reach out, and so I thought it was it was, you know, parents need connection too. That's what I thought it was good.
Yeah, and I think it was a very, probably, you know, it was one of our best coffee conversations that we've had, because we had real interaction, and outside of the language barrier that was there, and I want to thank our family workers, not only for, you know, Jillian for being there, but for what they do every day. If you come here and sit out here in that hallway for a few hours, you'll see what they do every day, and how they help parents who come in, who are registering students, who are who are English language learners. They're doing a lot of work with them, and it's great. But they had I think the key to Dr. Jago's is their concerns for their kids are the same as everyone else's.
Absolutely.
Their concerns are about their students being safe in school. Their concerns are about their student being on the cheerleading team. Their concerns about transportation and where does my student get picked up. Their concerns are the same. You know, it's just we have to make sure that we find the best ways to communicate with the students who come, you know, and families who come into our school district. And that's what to me, when I walked out of there, the answer to that was communication. We have to communicate better, more effectively.
Our next coffee conversation will be on Saturday, December 8th, right here at Zioni, 9:30 to 11. So, spread the word. It'll be up on the website, and I hope we have a wonderful turnout. All right. Is there any trustee who would like to bring up old business at this point? Old business? Yes.
I don't know if it fits under old business, but I think it does. I just want to thank my colleagues and thank the administration for moving ahead and being so proactive with our buildings and capital projects, because recently on the news, the local news, there has been a nearby district who's really so far behind the curve where they don't have floors in some of their buildings. They're putting in stone to replace floors that have been damaged, and they have not had, and I also want to thank our community for supporting us, because they haven't been able to pass a capital budget. And it's so sad to me that they're only probably 50 months away from us, but they're really in a bind. And I just think that it takes looking beyond what's right in front of you to prepare for what's coming. And I think that this district, its families and businesses have really supported those efforts to try to help the schools, and I appreciate that.
I would say that I agree with you, Mrs. Jordan. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, sitting with a superintendent who I don't know, but I have a great deal of respect for, and he's an excellent superintendent. And he was talking about his facilities problems, and I told him what we were doing, and he said, how'd you do that? And I was kind of, I was very complimented that someone would, someone of that, from a district where he's from, how we were doing things here in Kingston. So I think we are doing the right things.
Well, it's everything to our students to have these facilities. We were just at the high school looking around for the facilities committee, and it's inspiring to be in that building. When I walk into that library, you just don't want to leave the library. And they're saying that more and more kids are finding it and loving it. And it's just wonderful space. And when there's student artwork up, then I'll be really happy.
Soon.
Yeah, but it is fabulous.
Okay, one other little bit of old business. I sent out a survey earlier in the week, only 3 questions. So if you Didn't fill it out for this evening, you can certainly send it to me, even email, it wouldn't be too time consuming. It's on the restorative conferencing training, okay? So I think it was 3 days ago that I sent it out. So if you take a few minutes and just answer those questions. Now, there were 2 trustees who were unable to attend, and so I haven't emailed them. If you're sitting here going, I didn't get anything, that's why. I'm gonna pass this around. This was part I left off my facilities committee. This was the new design for the front of JFK that's now SHPO approved. So I'll serve down there and just pass it around. Any other old business before we move on? Okay, which brings us to new business. Yes, Mr. Shaughnessy.
The clock, if you can get up there.
The clock.
I thought we were just being really efficient.
They fell back.
Wait, 5 minutes.
It's 8:14. It's 8:14. And it just stopped working.
It was
It
working
was working
properly.
until
It got
about
stuck
7.
right at 7.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened.
Okay, I wrote it down.
Good, good, good.
Yeah, it was correct. It was correct. Yeah, it was correct until right
There
before,
was no stop working.
right when came out exactly. That was great.
Okay, new business? New business? Robert Chow. I'm
I
sorry.
just have a question.
What happened?
We're doing great work, I think, relative to the work that's being done on the physical building for the pre-K. My concern, or my question, I guess, is relative to our recruiting for the kids that are going to go into that. They're not used to doing this,
No, and
and it's going to be quite a task. So
It-
how are we going to do that?
we've been working on this already. We had a meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, about this. We met with Arburn also, who's, helps us with a lot of our outreach to ELL. And really, we are, again, leveraging the power of our bilingual family workers. But I'm gonna let Dr. Felicello give you a little more information, because she looked like she wanted to answer that question, so I'll let her. Oh, you did. You looked like you were lunging forward, like, can I answer?
She's gonna be gracious.
So basically, we were concerned because we are still actively trying to put the dual language program in place at the pre-K center. So what we've done, we as Dr. Petalino said, we reached out to our resource in Hudson Valley at Arburn, which is our resource for bilingual education in the state level. And they gave us quite a few suggestions as to how we can recruit to make sure that we are targeting our ENL population as well as our lower socioeconomic students. So we are, again, as Dr. Petalino said, our first initial attempt will be with our bilingual family workers, making those connections. We're also going to be meeting, because we do collect a lot of information when we register students in the district. We ask if they have younger siblings in the household. We haven't historically put that information into our database, so we're looking to do that so that we will have some additional projections as to what we already have for the targeted populations. There is an ENL family night at George Washington School tomorrow. We have made up just informational flyers that are very, very general in both English and Spanish. And we're going to have our bilingual family worker, and Jennifer Gribbin is going. She is sort of taking the lead in the ENL department. And they're going to be, really talking to the families, kind of making those personal connections to try to get them to see that and be aware of the program and how to register and all the pieces that will come along with that. So while we are still in the early planning phases, we want to, once we're able to start our enrollment, actually reach out to all of the families that we've made contact with. We also have Tatiana Rojas at the high school looking at some of the older siblings who are often care providers to younger siblings, and talking through, with them to go home to explain to their parents, to get them out to register their younger siblings. So we're starting with, it sounds small, just word of mouth, but we're making a lot of connections that way, and we really think in January we'll have a solid understanding of how many we've reached, and we'll start promoting then above and beyond those efforts.
This is really going to be, I guess with the corny term, but this is going to be a kind of a grassroots effort. Our traditional modes of communication aren't necessarily going to be effective. Our website, our Facebook, those mailers, those aren't going to be the effective ways we do. So we're drilling into our data, figuring out one of the things that I guess I didn't know but should have is that we aren't recording when parents are coming in and saying, yes, I have my child has 3 siblings at home. We're recording it on paper, but we're not putting it into the computer, so we can't grab it. So now we're doing the hard work of pulling that out, so doing that on that level. Getting to places like we did the Coffee and Conversation last week. Getting to places like the church that the board went to, to that congregation a month ago, making sure that we identify the leaders in that community who can help us, Mrs. Leopold, those people who can help us make those communications, as well as leveraging our bilingual family members who actually they go to the homes and so they know these people in this community and they can help us spread that word. And I think that's, like I said, by January we're going to take a look and say, okay, how do we do so far? How do we feel about our outreach, and then make our improvements from there, any adjustments.
A couple other questions to follow up on that. I'm glad to hear what we're doing for how we're doing that. But really, we also need to be doing the same type of effort relative to low-income minorities. That needs to happen. Okay. Also, I think to involve the community in doing that would be a real help, because there are people who are willing and waiting to say, hey, we can go around and talk to people if we can get the names and that information. So it really would be a grassroots type thing.
Anybody who's willing and waiting, stop waiting and call them.
Well, we talk to them about this, and they're waiting for us to tell them who they can go see, and we will have people.
They can always come see me, and I'll get them to where they need to, to the person who's, Dr. Felsello and I are really, Dr. Felsello's really running this show, but if they get to me, I'll get them to where they need to go.
Then the other question, how many, are all of the pre-K classes going to be bilingual?
The plan that we are in the proposal phase, of course, to put before everyone, will be to have, out of the 4 classrooms, 2 will be traditional pre-K classrooms, so just as you would see at JFK, and 2 of those classrooms will be like dual language classrooms, and we're looking for bilingual certified staff. We actually have, we have been looking at this long-term, so in our hirings even for this year, we started to look at staff, and we have some potential candidates who could move into those positions, and we're going to still be actively recruiting for that, because we do need someone with the Berkeley 2 certification, as well as even bilingual extension or the TESOL, and the bilingual extension would be preferred. So, so that's been an ongoing sort of a 3-year effort to really get the staff in to be able to support the program, but also looking at it long-term. Again, where are these students going to fit into in terms of an elementary school? We have a lot of proposals that are in very draft form, so, but we've been talking about that, and obviously we'll need to staff those programs as well. So it's a continued effort, and we've made a lot of progress in attaining staff who are bilingual, but we have a long way to go.
We are, we were once in a place where we were looking for dual certification. Now we're looking for teachers with dual certification, as well as having the bilingual skills and/or certifications within them. So it's a change. I think, and this is going to be. It might sound like it's a little extreme coming from me, but given the changes that we've been through already, I think the next 6 to 8 months are going to be transformative. There are a lot of things that are going on, and the pre-K. Just that discussion about the pre-K and where will that dual language program go? There are probably 5 or 6 major questions that we're going to have to answer before we can answer that question. And I think those are going to be around our facilities and going to be around our population and going to be around delivering education with equity to all of our students, about the populations within our buildings and the borders of our elementary schools. So these are all things that we're going to, you know, in the new year, this is going to be what the administration is going to be talking about with the board, and the board is going to be talking about with us and amongst each other, how we're going to move forward with, you know, with what I think will be, you know, some pretty drastic transformations in our district, in a good way.
When we were at last month's coffee and conversation at the church, I think that they were very interested in knowing whether or not somebody could come and actually, they offered to host a registration right there. And they thought that that might be a good way of getting kids signed up. The other thing that occurred to us was that perhaps when we advertise for openings for TAs in that program, maybe we should post those in the Hispanic churches, because a lot of the parents might be very qualified to be a TA and be, you know, bilingual. So that's not a population I think we've tapped enough. And I think we need more and more people who can also be in support roles that are bilingual. I think that would be helpful. So that, I think these two coffee and conversations have been really, really helpful in tapping into the energy of that community and the enthusiasm that they have for it.
Thank you, Mr. Drew. Anybody else? No? Okay, before I move on to ask for more new business, Mr. Kernan is trying to make attention to B29, the seeker from the Harvard. We got an email about this. This is something the group on the 1961 edition has developed multiple leaks, and it needs to be repaired. And we're asking that the board authorize the use of funds in the capital fund designated for roof repairs in order to pay the costs of the ordinary contingent expense.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Yes.
So this is not gonna go out to referendum, we're gonna do this as an emergency situation.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And any other new business now? On to more new business, yes.
On the
Mr.
new
Michael?
business, I just wanted to have a little discussion about this Kingstonian
Oh, just a
project.
preliminary kind of?
Yes,
Yeah.
as I understand, the developers, the last few weeks, they presented their project to the community once uptown, and I guess a few days ago at was the county business. But it was first presented to us as a finance committee meeting, which I was presided. And the project sounded very exciting. As I said, and I stated that day, probably the biggest project since IBM came in town, you know, $52 million project. Is very exciting. So the room was very warm, very excited. Everyone was excited to hear the presentation. And especially the part of the city of Kingston are very excited about this project because that will be more beneficial to the city people than us as a school district that will represent many communities. I found it a little bit disappointing. And as I stated to them, if that project goes along and it finishes up and it comes to fruition, it will be like the jewel of Kingston. But my excitement, it fell down soon as they requested that they wanted to decline paying any taxes on the new project. And then they wanted to pay part of the little real estate taxes now they're paying on the small buildings, which is assessed about $500,000. And according to the Kingston City Assessor, after the project is done, they'll probably be assessed over $25 million. That was my question, why we have to subsidize about $24.5 million project, and what's in it for the community. And I find it very troubling, the audacity and the ultimatum to say, if they go along with this project, or you don't have a parking garage. I'm very disappointed by their reaction. They promised they will bring some information, maybe some offer a little bit better deal for the taxpayers of Kingston. And for the last 3 weeks, we haven't heard a word from them. So I'm really troubled by this. Personally, as the way it stands, I will strongly oppose it. And I urge my colleagues to oppose that. And I hope the taxpayers of Kingston will raise their voices that it's not a fair deal. This is asking the whole community to be part of this, to be part of this investment. But as a community, we get nothing in return. And
Over and above what we're already getting.
what are we getting now?
But, go ahead.
One of my questions was, they're requesting a deviated pilot, which would be over 25 years. And I was just wondering if it could be reconsidered as a regular pilot, which is generally more 10 to 15 years from my understanding, and also would compensate the district more fairly in terms of taxes recouped. And because I do have a concern in terms of having such a long deal with such a low percentage that we're asking the rest of the community that goes to Kingston City Schools that might not be in the city of Kingston to kind of subsidize this. And I'm a little concerned about that. So I would hope that perhaps they could reconsider and resubmit just a pilot that would be more uniform with what other communities have done and seen.
Yes, Mr. Shaughnessy.
I think that a regular pilot is 10 years, and mine could be correct.
10 to 15.
10 to 15.
But also generally, there may be several years of no increase in taxes, and then there's a percentage of the full value that's taxed. So this, what they've proposed is really outrageous. Because the assessed value of the two properties that have buildings on it, the assessed value has increased by 3.5% a year over the last 4 years. And so that 2% increase in the tax for the next 25 years does not take into account what the property would be worth if nothing happened to it. So, at least I think it should be at least 5.5%. And that would get us somewhere to where it would be more palatable to me. But I'm certainly not impressed with the way it is now.
Yeah. Just to one clarification, I think from our two or three conversations we had with this group, the 2% is, I think, it's just a placeholder that they're putting there, I think around the 2% cap. I think their original discussion was whatever the natural increases would be in that property would be the amount that we're willing to pay. I think the 2% became kind of that holding spot. I'm not going to speak for them because that was my understanding, and we've been basing our kind of calculations around 2%, 3%, 4%, just because that's the easiest way to do it, because we can't necessarily predict what the assessor's going to say. The former Kingstonian Hotel, warehouse is going to be worth whatever. So I think the intention was whatever the regular increases in taxes on those properties would be what they would have.
Well, yes.
And I just think it's important for us to state and kind of keep in focus that our responsibility is to the taxpayers of the Kingston City School District. And then that goes beyond just the city of Kingston. And then our interest is in the Kingston City Schools. And so as we negotiate this and as we work together with the city and with the developers, you know, my hope is an understanding and appreciation of the responsibility that we have to our taxpayers and to our kids to make sure that we are, you know, getting what we need for the community that we represent.
So since it's a deviated, I think this was discussed in executive session, right? So, with our attorney.
Yes.
So I don't know what he told you all, but since it's a deviated pilot that they're proposing, does it require our approval before the Austin County Development Corporation will approve it, a deviated pilot, or can they just approve it as if it's a normal pilot?
It's my understanding from what our attorney said, that the way the law is written, they could approve it without our approval, but they are directed by the law. There is verbiage in the law that they should seek the approval of the taxing authorities. So, but the IDA, as I understand it.
Yeah, it's really the rules and regulations around the IDA, it's not even necessarily law, and the policies for the IDA is that they reach out to the taxing authorities to seek consent. It does not require consent, it's to seek consent. So, and that's so over and above that, that's their responsibility, and the IDA can.
Yeah, and I would agree with Mr. Michael in saying that it's an exciting project for the city of Kingston. But as everyone has said, that we don't just represent the city of Kingston. The city of Kingston, actually through their, I guess it's RFQ, like an RFP, but slightly different, did request proposals that would produce parking, more parking in the uptown area.
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm totally against this project, but what I wanted to see, to come up with some better deal that we offer a little bit something to our community and to our taxpayers. I mean, they're asking for the deal in a way, that's the way I look at it, but to have a better deal, both parties have to walk away smiling. And I was smiling when I left the room that day, because it was giving nothing to us, nothing. And this DVAD program, I always find it what you call in real estate and banking, like creative financing. They wanted to find a way spreading out this DVA program over 25 years, and it was down to dollars and cents. They expect the community to pay for it, half of their project, because the rough numbers, I'm sure Mr. Olson will agree with me, is about $25 million that they will try to get away from paying taxes. With actually the taxpayers that will be funding half of the project. And I don't find this fair, I would say. It's something I would not accept it the way it was presented. If they come back with something better, they're willing to give something to the community as a whole, as the district, I'll go along with it.
Anybody else? Yes, please do.
I think that I have to disagree with Mr. Michael that the jewel of Kingston is Kingston High School, and the biggest project is the Kingston High School project, which is much larger. But
The jewel of the Kingston, 2 years when it's all
make
finished.
sure we start. So, but I think this is a very complicated task. It goes along with a parking garage and leasing municipal land and paying for a parking garage and those kind of things. And I think it's an important project for the city of Kingston, and I think it arguably to the surrounding communities, but also our job is to represent all of our students in the school district, not necessarily the economic development efforts of the city. That being said, we do want the city to thrive. We do want the economic development opportunities for the city to be there. And I think it's just really important that we make sure that, whether it's with the city and the developers, that we are open to conversation. We'd like to, we aren't saying we're totally against this. We would like to see a little more in it for the students and the community as far as taxable, receipts, kind of thing.
Also, there's no guarantee it's gonna happen.
It's true.
There's been a lot of proposals in Kingston in the last 15 years that have come to nothing.
Well, I hope it happens, but I hope they just give us a pilot instead of a deviated.
Yeah, I think the developer's track record and, some of their other business partners in our community, show their commitment and their ability and their capacity to do this and to make it work. It's impressive. It's an impressive plan. It's an impressive design. It would be an impressive project. And I'd love to be able to sit here and have all of us be able to support it, but I think Mr. Michael's right. Everybody needs to walk away from the table and smile.
I want to say something else about the IDA agency. The county has a lot of new members on the board today. And I hope these people will be more diligent, before they just sign off these, pilot programs, will be more demanding, a lot more specifics, their applications and also with their demands. So let's hope, there will be some breaks on those projects that just sign off, okay, and like the last previous pilot program, there were requested, for the two senior citizens buildings. It was just a simple, plain business deal that we ended up footing part of the bill, and I hope things have changed now.
It was my impression that this particular deviated pilot was different from that, and that this was actually requested by the mayor.
I understand.
Right, and also in an effort to secure the grant money from the state, which they have done. So it's different in those ways as well.
I understand, of course.
Reverend Jones?
Well, I think, I can't say that I'm opposed to this, I'm just opposed to it the way it's presented. And I think it will be good for Kingston, and it'll be good for the outlining area of Kingston also, but I think the way that it's presented, the way that they've said they're gonna do this, is not the best interest of it. So hopefully it'll be modified.
I hope so too.
Okay, any other new business then? All right, board member announcements? Board member announcements? Mr. Shaughnessy.
So I was at the BOCES school board meeting this evening, that's why I was late getting here. But it was at Anna Devine tonight, and the BOCES board members were very, very impressed. The BOCES administration really wanted to show it off, and I think they might have had the floors polished between 3 o'clock this afternoon when the students left, and 5 o'clock when the board members were arriving. It was sparkling. So they're very proud of it. They have about 90 students in there now in 2 programs. The PTEP program is on the 2nd floor. The Phoenix program is on the 1st floor. They have the rooms behind the cafeteria. The Model Schools program is in the library section, and it's very impressive what they have done there, the technology that they're using and demonstrating to school districts. So That's my announcement.
Thank you. Any other board member announcements? Okay.
I just will
Oh,
share
sorry.
this. I happened to watch the chairman of IBM was on the Today, on CBS this morning or something, touting the P-TECH program and how they are such an instrumental partner and they're trying to expand it, and they talked about having about 500 sites throughout the country, and I thought, isn't that great? Kingston's one of them. So I just thought that was wonderful.
Thank you.
And just to throw in there, we have a tremendous, our PTEC program and you know, the Council of Industries here in the Hudson Valley is our partner, not IBM. They've done a great job partnering with us, and it really speaks to the high-tech, smaller business manufacturing that we have here in Hudson Valley that our students are working more with, and that partnership is not that IBM wouldn't be a good partner, they would as well.
Right. They're just not here anymore.
But the Council of Industries has been a great partner.
Yeah.
Can I also say something too, like, I'm listening a lot to the BBC News and the radio, and a couple of days ago, there was like, to them, report this profound new thing about the STEM program, and I said, my goodness, you know, now you started paying interest to that, you know what I mean? STEM program, we have it for so many years, now it's catching up overseas, I guess, so. So we've been pioneers in a way, in many things.
We've reached the second opportunity for public participation. Rules are the same, policy is on the podium. Is there anyone who would like to address the board?
I'm just going to use my teacher voice. I'm going to differ with Dr. Catalino in the sense that I'm going to say that I think the crown jewels in Kingston are all the Kingston seniors. With my heart lying, of course, most in Mahar, because I think that community has a tremendous heart. About 8 years ago, a little bit later than this, I stood, I think it was in Milligan, or cafeteria, and I actually begged, when we resigned, that Mahar was going to close, but I begged that we use these staff members who were so very tied in with the community that was moving and the community that we were moving into, and we used those people to help make the move. And I'm going to suggest tonight, because you were asking Dr. Catalino and Dr. Delacello, not with bilingual, because certainly Kennedy is not working with many of those children at this point, but with the part of the community, a great part of the community that Reverend Childs was speaking about. Many of us have worked with them for decades and have been in their trust and know the families, and have been to baby showers for all those 4-year-olds that will be coming. And I think if you really want to look for recruiting, you can look right in your schools. And many of us would be more than happy to help you. There are many other outreach places, but you've got people on the payroll that know that community really, really well. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Okay, hearing no takers, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have a question.